Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome to the channel. This is the longest video I've ever done because I wanted to create a full functioning project in only 3 hours. Before you watch 3 hours long video, let me show you guys what you will have at the end of this video, and you will decide if it's worth your time or not. Here we have our mini e-commerce app. Actually, this was the second part of the payments app, but I added so many features to this that this is basically a mini e-commerce app, and it will come to kind of solve the problem with our e-commerce series, because all of this you can just take and straight use them on our e-commerce series, right? And if you're not watching our e-commerce series, no worries, you can chill. You can just start from this project and you're good to go. You can build your e-commerce from the knowledge you're going to gain here. Let's see what we have. We have our basic Firebase authentication. I already created a user. What I'm going to do now is basically log in to that user. I have the email 3123 and the password here. Log in. And after the login is done, this is what you are going to see. So I call this language market. Language is market. But basically, if this is an e-commerce, you can sell anything. You can use this to sell anything. It doesn't really matter. I just did this for the sake of doing it. And again, we have this small validation when the user just opened the app. We have here, you have to add your credit card, right? This is a small feature that we still have to improve. There's some basic features or some features that we will still have to improve on this project by the end of the project, right? But no problem. Here's the basic overview of the app, right? And if you go to our drawer, we have a couple options here. One of them, add card. Then we have manage cards and all of that. I already used this user and tested this user a couple times, right? So if you come here and you click add credit card, you'll be directed to this screen where you can just add a credit card number, add expiring date, the month and the year, and the CVC as well, and then the name on the card, and you add that to your particular user, right? And then you have another feature here, which is manage cards, and this is to give the user the ability to manage multiple cards on his particular account. You have these 3 dots here. We are supposed to use this to add more options like activate card, delete card, but they are not functioning now. So you will know that at the end of the project, you'll not get this functioning because I didn't want to make a 5 or 10 hours long tutorial, but that's something we can improve. And this is only the part 1. I'll do a final video on this where we add these basic functionalities that we don't have yet. Done. And another thing that we have here is our purchase history, right? This is done as well. We have our subscriptions, but the subscriptions are not working yet. And this is super amazing because I want to teach you guys how to implement subscriptions on your projects. Maybe you don't want to charge the customer. You don't want the customer to pay for a product, but to pay on a monthly basis, 6 months to whatever you want, right? So this is the basic mini e-commerce app and mastering payments with Flutter. You are going to learn a lot of things on this video, I promise you guys. Saying that this is a 3-hour app would be kind of lying, because we have our mastering payments part 1, which is the beginning of this project, and then we have this particular project, which is the continuation of the previous one. So you kind of have to watch the first video. The mastering payments part 1 is a 40-minute long 40 minutes long video, but you really do have to watch that video to come and continue from here, right? And I wanted to do only 2 videos, but unfortunately, because there's still a bit of small things to improve and small things I want to teach you guys, I will do a final one after this one. I don't know if it takes 5 hours, 10 hours. I will do it anyways. So if you're excited, if you want to learn what we have here, and I promise you guys, you are going to learn a lot. If you are ready and if you're interested, if you want to take this knowledge and kind of implement on a real e-commerce app, feel free to watch the video. Feel free to leave comments in the description, ask me questions. No worry, I'll be here to answer whenever that's possible. And we'll bring our final part on this video because there's a couple things that still are to be improved. So that's it. I hope you're excited, and if you think that this small project is worth your time, make sure you watch the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel and drop that like button, or click on that like button. See you guys on the video. Hello beautiful people, welcome back to the channel. Well, on this particular video we are going to finalize our mastering payments in Flutter, and I have news for you guys. We were supposed to do this, implement all of this structure using Firebase Cloud Functions, but I just realized that for you to use Stripe, do external calls inside of Cloud Functions, you cannot be using a free plan on Firebase. It has to be a paid plan. So I had to restructure and kind of find a way around doing that, and we are going to do that using direct API calls. That's the only way here. Unfortunately, I won't show you guys using Cloud Functions because you would have to pay a Firebase plan for that, and that's not the goal here. I have here couple tabs open, and all of them are going to be important. We will use those as a reference. This is the Stripe API documentation actually, so we are going to use those. And there's something else I use to test some of these APIs, and it's called Postman. You don't have to know how to use Postman. We are not going to use that here, but this is a very interesting tool because you use this to test your APIs. So I already have a couple of them here tested. Let me open up on our Flutter project, like user creation and card creation and all of that, right? So this is where we are going to start from. The very first thing we are going to do here is, let me open up this tab, is going to pub.dev, and we need this package here, the dio or dio, I don't know how you pronounce it, but the dio package, because we are going to do our HTTP requests using this. This is more advanced than the normal Dart HTTP package. That's why we are going to use this one. So let's copy this, come to our project, open pub spec file, paste that guy and do get packages. And one of the reasons why we are going to use this instead of the normal HTTP package is because the body of the request here of the Stripe API doesn't use straight JSON. It uses something called URL encoded forms, right? And you have no way of calling that directly using HTTP request. That's why you need to use this package. For you to have an idea, we have this body represents the body of the request, and if you see here, we have this x www form URL encoded. This is the type or the structure we are using for our body on the request. We are not using straight JSON. Okay, good. We have that part out of the way. Now, what we need to do, we need to make sure that we do calls but instead of passing JSON, we are passing the XWW form URL encoded format on our request body. Okay, good. I have this page. I've seen that here on Stack Overflow. Let me this is the piece of code we are going to use. I did a bit of research. How can you do that directly on Flutter? And I found this on Stack Overflow. So this is interesting, and we are going to copy and use this structure. Now, how are we going to do that? Let's go back to our app here, and inside of services, let's create one called, how are we going to call this? We can call it payments because it's going to deal with payments, or we can call it Stripe. Yeah, Stripe is better. So we have this service, let's call it Stripe. Okay, we want to add that to Git. Yes, we call this service Stripe. Here I have the create user API already, and if I go to the body, the only thing we really do need to include for the creation of the Stripe user is the email, and that's the only thing we need to create the Stripe user. Let me explain you guys the logic a bit. I don't want to make this, or I don't want to overcomplicate this. First of all, when we have a new user, we are going to create that user on our Stripe account, or customer on our Stripe account. Okay, we have the customer, and the customer has a Stripe ID. Good. And then we'll have the ability of adding cards to that particular customer. So the customer will be able to fill a form, have that card information, and we have that on Stripe linked to that particular customer. Good. And then we are going to have a product. Every time a customer wants to buy something, that customer is going to be charged, or his default payment method or active card is going to be charged. That's the step. So coming back to the code, the very first thing we want to do is to make sure that we have the structure to create the Stripe user, the Stripe customer. Again, not trying to overcomplicate this, let's open up Stripe. And while it processes, we can start working here. The very first thing we are going to do is to create a class, and we'll call that Stripe services. Let's zoom in. Good. And I know for sure that we are going to need two things here. Let's create a static constant, and we are going to call this public key, or publishable, how they call that on Stripe, key. And okay, we have this guy. Let's call it publishable key, and this is how they call this on Stripe. And we are going to need a second one, and we'll call this guy secret key. Good. Now here on Stripe, we just have to click on our dashboard. And while that processes, one thing we will need here for sure is to import packages dio.dart. We will have this like that. Good. Let's make sure I think this is the one we are using. This is the project I'm using. Okay, we have the project I'm using open. We have to click on developers, API keys, and here we have the publishable key. We'll copy this guy, paste him here, and finally we need our secret key. And again, for your own account, you're going to have your own publishable and secret keys. Right? Perfect. Now, future string. We'll call this method create Stripe customer. And we will take the user's email. That's the only thing we need for now. Okay. We have this method that it's going to create our first Stripe customer. And it takes email as one of the parameter. Now let's go to our Stack Overflow, and I'll copy this, then I'll try to explain it to you guys. First thing here is just to do import dio as dio. Then what's the issue here? Okay, let's do it like this. I need to copy this option. Okay, good. We have that out of the way. Actually, I think we didn't even need this. Now we have here our dio.post. Now again we have our structure, and the very first thing is the URL. We will take care of that in a minute. Then we have our data, and what we'll do is configure this guy as data. And here we will set email being equal to email. And here for data, we will just paste data, which is that map. And for the options, this is what we will use. Then we have content type. Is not. Let's do something like this. Okay. I believe that maybe this problem is because the package was updated and that's kind of outdated. So the only way for us to know what's possible, let me come here and open up the structure of the post using deal, and we have options. Here we have options again. Okay, here I could see that I can see that the structure of the package changed. Now we have request encoder, request decoder, string, we have the content type, and we have response type. Okay, so probably now the structure kind of changed. It's not the same as the one we have there on. It's not the same as the one we have there on Stack Overflow. Now we just need the string here. Let me delete there and delete here. And we need to close. We need another parenthesis here. Okay, so now this is how this is done now. The structure kind of changed, so sorry for that, because I was just trying to figure out a way of solving that or going around that issue, but that's no problem. Because if you have a look here at this article, this is kind of old. I believe the version of Dio they used here was old, and now things kind of changed, right? But it's fine. This is how you do now. Now, good. So far, so good. We need our endpoint that we use to create our Stripe customer. I already have that tested, so I'll go here, I'll copy, and this is the endpoint, and you paste that here on the address https column//api.stripe.com/view1/customer. And this is basically how we create customers. But you don't have to memorize all of this. You can just go to the documentation. Where is that? You can just go to the documentation and up to customers and just copy the URL you're going to get here. Good, perfect. Now I know that this is going to return a customer object. Then we'll call this result. result is basically the response we are going to get from this, because this is going to return something. If this is successful, we are going to get a customer object. It has the response. So to make things easier to understand, we can, instead of result, we can define here as response. Come here and write response. Response.data. And for now we can just put here void, and then I'll show you why. We just want to test this out. Print to string. So basically what's going to happen here is simple. When we get our response, we are going to display that the message or the data, and that way we are going to see that this operation was successful. But we are going to handle this properly. This is just for testing, because I want to test this and make sure you guys understand what we're doing here, and then we will improve the way we handle our response here. Okay, so guys, I already went ahead and tested. I did a test on this piece of code we have here, and it didn't work properly. I had a couple errors here and there, so I discovered it would be better and easier for us to go with the normal HTTP, because we can handle the www form URL encoded format. So how are we going about doing that? To make it easier, first of all, you would have to import your HTTP package. You just have to go to your pubspec file, and here you have your HTTP package here, and coming back here, you just have to import your HTTP as HTTP. Right. The problem with the DO dependency is that the version kind of changed, and I was getting an error of the content type trying to implement our new format, so we better just go with the normal HTTP request. Okay, let's comment out on this and try to do the implementation here for the HTTP. Here have the basically here what we have is almost exactly what we had here on our DO package, but here we're using HTTP. And let me explain it to you guys how it works, or what's the logic behind it. Again, we are doing http.post, and here we have to set the URL. After the URL, we have to set the body of the request, and we called it data. Basically what we have here is the email, and this is what we're using. Go down. So as the body of the request, we are passing the email of the user. That's the only thing we are going to use. And we can pass a lot of parameters. You can define the user with a lot of parameters. That's usually how it works on Stripe, but we'll try to keep it simple for now. Okay. Then you have headers, the header of the request, and we have headers. We still have to define this variable, that's why it's red here. And then when we get the response, what we're doing is we are taking the response body and we are converting that to a string. Right? Simple. And if we have an error, we'll just print here there was an error, and we'll print the error here. Now let's create the headers map. So here we have the headers map. It's going to be a map of the type string. First, we are going to define the content type here, because this is something important. And the content type usually is application/JSON, but here it's going to be application XX www form URL encoded. That's the application type we need to use to interact with the Stripe API. And we are going to add another thing, which is authentication. So for the authentication, we will pass bearer here, and then there's the secret key, and here we have defined the secret key. So this is what we are going to use. I think we can just get rid of this. We don't need to comment it. We can just get rid of it. Okay, the create user method is done. We will use the email and we'll create the user. Now what we can do on top of this is that when we create a user, we can return a Stripe ID, which is the ID that we are going to use to access that particular user. We have two options. We can return the Stripe ID, or we can directly update the Stripe ID inside of this method. And I think that the directly updating the Stripe ID to the user details would be the best approach here. Now to do that, we'll need to do something here. I'll use a string, and the string is going to be called Stripe ID, and in here we'll need to use JSON decode, and what we want to decode is our response dot body, and finally here we will have ID. Sorry. Excuse me. Okay, we have ID here, right? And here, instead of printing the whole Stripe thing, we can just write the Stripe ID is, get rid of this, and here we'll write Stripe ID. Okay, good. Now what are we going to do? Let me have a look at them on our, let's see the methods that we have here. Okay, we still do not have a method that directly is going to deal with the user, apparently. Let me have a look. We have here user service. Let's see if there's something here. Okay, you have this file called this class called user service, and basically what it does, it takes care of the user, some methods related to the user. The method that we need here is this one that says update details, and we will use this to update user details. So what we will need to do is, let's go back to our Stripe. I just realized that this method will take another parameter. Let's make them named parameters. What's the matter here? Okay. This is going to be a string, and the name of this first string will be email, and this is going to be a string again, user ID. So we need to take these two parameters for this method. We need the user ID and the user email. Good. Now in here, after we have this, let's define something else, which is user service. So we'll define an object of the type user service in here. And what we are going to do is user service dot update details. So we will use this to update user details, and inside of this method I'll do something like this. What we need is ID, which will be the user ID. And then the second thing that we need here is Stripe ID, which will basically be the user Stripe ID. So what we're doing here, we are making sure that if the creation of the user is successful, our Stripe ID is not going to be null. We are going to define this variable called Stripe ID for the user, right? Good. And since we have this, we may need to go back to the models. We need to go back to the models, open up users, and we already have this field called Stripe ID, and we already have that component called Stripe ID, and it can be set to null. Okay, perfect. We already have that handled here. Let me go back here. We already have the user Stripe ID set. Good. Now the second, probably we may need to improve this function, or this method in the future, but we will see. The second method that it's important now is the method that we are going to use to create the card. I was trying to use the Stripe API or the Stripe library with Flutter, but I was having some issues, so I kind of went ahead and did all of this directly working with the APIs. So we will create our own a method that's going to create the card, and then we are going to attach that card to the user manually. That's basically what we are going to do here. And instead of using that card form that we get from the Stripe library, we will build, or we'll have our own form. We will have our own form on the app, and we are going to take the values, the data from there, and directly create our card on Stripe and attach that card to a user. Good. One thing you may need to know here is that for all of this to work on your Stripe account, you have to verify your phone number. I don't know if I did mention that, but you have to get your phone number verified. Just go to your Stripe dashboard, verify your phone number, and they will send you an SMS code and all of that. Okay, enough of the talking. Let's create another future method, and we'll call this add card, for example. Now here we are going to need couple things, indeed. But let me go back to Postman. And I have here our create card method. So this is basically what we need. Okay. Make sure we're dealing with named parameters. The first string, it's going to be the type, but we don't have to define this because by default we will set we'll set the type to card as we have here. And if you don't understand what this is, don't mind it. This is basically a software that you use to test your APIs, and I was doing the tests before I did the video, so I'm just coming here for reference to see which fields do we need on our body request. Anyways, continuing, we need the number. This is going to be an integer. Call it card number. We need expiring month and year. Int again. Expiring month. Dart doesn't name things like this, so I'll just leave here month. And here int year. And after that we need the CVC, which happens to be an integer as well. For the card, I think that's all. The very last thing we are going to need here is a string for the Stripe ID, for the user Stripe ID. Stripe ID. Okay, good. We have our structure set. Now we will basically do the same thing. We'll basically do the same thing. Okay, let's do it. We'll call http.post. Now we have to define here our URL. To create our cards, we have here payment method. This is how it's called. But instead of doing that, we can just come here, define a static constant, and call it payment. And then we can provide the URL here. And here you just replace it with payment method. This is the URL we are using. Let's do the same thing here for the customers. URL. Let's go up here. Oops. Let's go up here again. Customers URL. This is how we are going to call this. And we paste here the customers URL. Something is off here. Okay, cool. Payment method URL, so that we know that we are dealing with URLs here. So I'll copy this, come back here, replace it, come up here to our HTTP, and again we are going to pass our customers URL. And this basically makes it simple to manage your code, and also it's a good practice. Get rid of the DO. Good. I mean, the structure here is basically the same, mainly when it comes to the headers. So I don't really think that this must be defined inside of a particular class. We can just define it here outside. Or even outside of our class. Doesn't really have to be here. But then our constant would have to be outside as well. Okay, we better define it here. And now we can access that from inside any method inside of this class. Okay, good. We have to make sure we have our data right. Let me come in here. Copy our data, and if you want to make this simple to get, instead of data, we can define this as body, and you can take this body and paste it here. Okay, now the elements inside of the body map are going to be different. We will copy the structure from here. So the very first thing that we need here is this. Oops. Card number, and the value of this is going to be card number as well. Okay, now we kind of have a problem, because this only takes strings, and we need to pass integers. Okay, we'll find our way around that in a minute. So let's pass the month. We need the year. and we finally need the CVC. Now let's have a look on our post method, and I'll zoom in a bit. Okay, this is bad. We cannot use the normal HTTP, because if you have a look here for the body, they have map set to string, meaning that the key has to be a string and the value has to be a string as well. But for the case of the card, we need a key to be string, but the value has to be an integer, or we can make use of anything actually. So we cannot use the HTTP. We can only go back to the DO again for this particular case. We have no other option actually. So guys, to fix that integer issue we were having, what you have to do here is basically, instead of having string here, excuse me, you are going to have string and dynamic here. Dynamic, basically we are saying that we can have on our value section, we can have any type of value. It can be a string, it can be a map, it can be an integer, double, anything. That's the first step. And since our normal HTTP request like this one cannot handle integers on our value section, here we have to go back to the DO package and basically copying or doing the exact same thing we had above. But I just realized why that wasn't working, because there's couple things that you need to do to make sure that things will work fine. Sorry. So once you fix this, you have dynamic here, this should work fine. And then don't forget to add this line type card to make sure the Stripe API knows that we are dealing with a card here. Good. And then here you come to our DO package, DO post, payment method URL, and we already have this. And then we have our data. We are passing body here, which is basically this. And then for our option, my first issue was that for the content type, I was directly writing the content type as a string, but that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use headers dot from URL encoded content type. This is what you're supposed to use here. And then pass headers here. Headers has headers. We already defined these headers above. And that's basically it. That's all that you have to do here, at least. So that's it. Let me try to come up here and maybe use this. As well, and down here, instead of using this, we can just okay, it doesn't work. Okay, good. Now our logic to add card didn't it's not complete yet, because here we can create a new card on Stripe, but we still have to attach that card to a user, and that's what we are trying to do here. So to attach the card to a user, let me go back to Stripe, and here is the code to do that. Right. Here's the code that's going to do that. So coming back here, the very first thing that we'll want to do inside of this method is running string payment method will be equal to JSON the code, and what we want to decode is rec for request rec data, and in here we are looking for ID, right? Good. Now we can just write here that the payment method is payment method ID is and then we use payment method. We'll just print this on our terminal here to see that everything is working fine. Now after all of that is done, we'll call a method saying that says attach card, or we could just do that directly here. But I think we better call a method called and this is going to take I'm doing something wrong here. And this can be a private method because we will only access this guy from inside this class. That's a future void. We'll call it attach card. What's the issue here? Okay, I don't know what's the matter, but okay, let's make it simple. To do the attach card, we don't need a lot of things. We only need the customer ID actually. So we'll do a normal HTTP here. And for the URL, we don't have a way around. We will have to copy this. Copy this URL here. Paste it here. And in here where they have this fake Let me paste it again. I think I didn't do that correctly. Copy this URL. Paste it here. Delete the slash. And here we will remove the payment ID and we'll substitute that using payment method, and this is going to be the ID. Good. For our body, we will use customer. Stripe ID. We will attach this payment method to this particular customer. And for the headers, we'll use headers. No. This is not supposed to be inside of the body, sorry. It's supposed to be here. For the headers, we will use headers. And in case we have an error, we will write here first of all we'll want to print error attaching card to customer, so that we will see where the error happened. And then here we have the error. To string. Okay, perfect. We have this thing handled. And if we do not have any type of issues, we can use here a then. And inside of this, then we'll just print code 0. Basically means that everything worked fine. And we really did add the card to the user. So here we have the logic to add a card and attach that particular card to a customer, right? Now what do we need to do here is basically I think it's our last thing, which is charge. We need to create a charge. So we'll create a method for that. We'll call it charge, and we will take a couple parameters here. Customer to be charged, which will be this Stripe ID. And what else we need? We need the amount. For now, I'll use int, but you can use double for this, I think. So the logic is basically the same. The logic is basically the same. So I will just copy this. And paste it back here. To charge, we will need to copy this endpoint here. Go to the very top. Again, we need to create a constant. Okay, there we have it. Let's start working with that. Okay, we'll need to come down here to our charge and get rid of this. Instead, use charge URL. We can remove our body from here. I think that we better use the DO package instead of this one, actually, because we need to take care of numbers as well when we are dealing with the amount. That's the disadvantage of the HTTP, because if you want to deal with different type of data like strings for names and numbers and maps, you cannot use the HTTP. You have to go with the DO or DIO. I don't know how it's pronounced. So here we have charge URL and what they call data. Okay, and we can call it data as well, no problems. And from this data we need to get the amount, we need to get the currency, which should be USD for our case. I mean, currency, which will be USD. What else do we need to get? Source. Talk max. And we will have another property here, which is customer. And for our particular case, this is the customer that it's going to be charged. So you just leave it there, customer, and it will be customer. So you have that done. Let me copy the options from here because they are basically the same. Oh man, oh man. Let me copy these options, and probably I would have a better way of doing this instead of copying the options, but you know. And here we need to have a Dan. We will have a response. From now we can just print this response. But eventually we will need to add this to Firebase. For now we can just print. And the final thing we need is to catch our errors in case we have any. We'll print there was an error. Charging the customer. And after that we will do this to string. Okay. Technically we already have technically we already have all of the methods we need here to add cards, attach the card to user, to charge a customer. We already have that here. Now we will start working that on the actual app on our front end, getting the UI correct and ready, and start testing these things out. But once this is done, basically the basic structure of payments is done. Okay, let's continue. So guys, our goal now is to make sure that our purchases somehow will be stored in a database, right? And to make that possible, we will do the following thing. Here under services, let's create one Dart file, and we'll call this purchases. Of course, we want to add that to our database, and we'll create another one called cards. Okay, we will take care of the cards afterwards, but now we can focus on purchases. Let's go to the user, because the style of the purchases will be completely like the user style. So what I'm going to do is basically copy this and go to our purchases, paste it. We may need to zoom this a bit, and here we will call this purchase. We call this purchase services, and here we'll create a new collection, and we'll call this purchase. Or purchases. And here where we have create user, we'll change this to create a purchase. Good. Update details. We really don't need to update the purchase details, because these, once they are stored, they are not going to be changed. So we don't really need this method here, but I'll just comment it out just in case we need it in the future. And let's create another one called get purchase. By ID, and this will get a particular purchase. We still have to develop this furthermore, but the very last method here for us to create will be a future method. Let's do something. Let's go to our models, and we'll create two files, one called purchase. We have purchase created here, and after this we'll need to create the cards method. So just go ahead and create cards. So we have purchase created. Now let's create cards, and we'll create another file called cards for the models. Let's go to our purchase for now, because this is our focus. What we'll need to do again, we don't have to recreate this. We can just go to the users or to the product. Where's the product? Now we can go to the users, and okay, I think we better start this from scratch, because open up purchase, import. We need Cloud Firestore here. Let me zoom in a bit to make sure it's visible for you guys. We need Cloud Firestore, and it's already included. Class, we'll call this purchase model. Now let us think together and just find out the fields we may need here on our purchase. Copy this guy out, go back to our purchase. We'll need one field on our purchase model called ID, which is perfect. And then apart from the ID, we will need one called product name. And the point here is that the products are hard coded, but if you had the product set on Stripe, you would definitely need a product name ID or something like that. But for now, we are only going to use our product name because we want to see what the user did buy. We have our product name. Good. Apart from that, we will need our purchase amount. Or we can just define this as amount for simplicity purposes. We'll have this amount. sorry for that. Other than amounts, what else are we going to need here? What else are we going to need? We need to get our customer ID because we want to know who did this particular purchase. So we'll define this as customer ID. Good. And what else do we need here? Is the card that did the purchase. But even before that, I think we may need to use a date, because that's relevant as well. So here we'll define date for our purchase date. Date. We have the product name. Good. This is important. The amount. Good. The customer ID, Stripe customer ID, so we can see who did this purchase. Good. We have the date. Good. The final thing that we need here is probably the card, so that the customer can see he did this purchase using what card. Credit card. And here we'll have credit. Credit card. Done. Now, before we continue here, let's open up our credit card model. Probably we will need this as well to import our Cloudflare store as well. Let me zoom in a bit. We'll call this credit card model. Going back to this file, obviously we are going to need our ID because we need a way of differentiating our credit cards. And we will need our customer ID as well. Then we have here customer ID. Good. What else do we need for our credit card? Let me open up this, and this is basically a Json viewer. Here we can see this is the response. Oops. This is the response we get when we add when we do a payment This is the structure of the card. Let me just open up and see what we need. Country we don't need. What do we need here? I think we need to specify the expiring month. This is important. So here we will define this guy as expiring month. I don't know how to write this. Month, representing the expiring month. And here we'll have expiring year. Or we can remove this to make it easier. We have month there and we have year. Here we have expiring year. Good, perfect. Now, what are we going to do here is basically, is this all? No, we need one final field which is called last four, which is going to have the last 4 digits of our credit card. And here you have it, last 4. Okay, this is basically the structure that we are going to use for our cards. And let me just get rid of this. Let's define here credit card model. From snapshot, we'll take a document snapshot and call it snapshot. Here, and we will take care of that. For now, we have to create these variables. We need a string called ID. We need another string called customer ID. Good. Integer for the month. The remaining ones are going to be integers, so I can get rid of those. One that's going to store the expiring month, and our second one is going to store our expiring year, and finally last 4. And as you guys probably know by now, what I do then is I set some getters so that we can read these values. So I have string get ID, and this is going to display the value of ID. We need another getter for our customer ID. We need one for the integer, so we have int get month being basically equal to, not equal, but getting the value of this variable here. Now we just need to pass this 2 times, 1 2, and 1 will take the value of the year. Our last one will take the value of the month, last 4 digits, sorry. So here we'll have year and last 4. Now what we need to do here is basically getting ID being equal to snapshot dot data ID. Now we are going to repeat this process 1 2 3 4 for the remaining variables. We have here customer ID. We'll take the value of customer ID. We have here our month. We'll take the value of month. We have here year. Assign this the value of year. And we finally have last 4, and here we will take the values of last 4. Good. We will need to create 2 more methods. We usually just stop here, but now we need to create a couple more methods. One of them has the basic structure. The structure is almost the same, so we'll copy this, paste it, but now this constructor is going to be called from map. And here, instead of a document snapshot, we'll be getting the values from a map. We'll call this map data. And why are we doing this? Because sometimes, most of the time, we can just get the values from our map. Our API is going to return a map, and we'll just take the values of that map and assign to a particular object of the type credit card model. So just get rid of this. Get rid of this as well. And now our final method here inside of cards will be to map. So it will take a string and a dynamic. and we'll paste this. Oops. To our map. And what will be done here is basically let's just do return get rid of this and we'll write it like this. No. Okay, I'll just write here return, and what we want to return is a map, right? Now the values of our map will be ID equal to ID. We'll return what else is there, customer ID equal to customer ID. We'll return, what else do we have? Month, year, last for. Month is equal to month. Year it will return a year. And for our last four, this should be capital. It will return our last 4 digits. So what's the use of this method? When we want to insert data from, we want to convert an object of the type credit card model, and we want to insert that data inside of Firebase, we cannot send this model because Firebase doesn't understand this model. Firebase doesn't know what credit card model is. So we have to take the values of that particular object, convert them into a map, and we are going to return a map. So that's basically that. Okay. So now going back to our product model here, instead of card we will get credit card ID. So let's write card ID here. Good. Now what's going to happen is we'll need to stop this again, go back to our services. For example, for this method we have here get purchase by ID. This is when we want to read or we want to get a particular purchase. I don't know when we're going to use this method, but we'll have it anyway. Oops. Yes. We still have to define from snapshot method inside of purchases. But to make our lives easier, we can go to a more complete one, which is card. Open up card, paste, because the structure is basically the same. You just have to zoom in a bit, and instead of user services here, we'll write card services, and the collection name that we want to deal with now is cards. Create card. We will need this. Let's see what else. Update details of a card. We won't need this, I think. Now we may need this, so let me leave it like that. Update details. We may need a third method called delete card. And here, instead of update, we'll just use delete. And we can use card model, credit card model. And the name of the method will be get card by ID. Okay, this is good. Now we need one final method. Let's try to replicate this. This cannot be a void, the method I'm trying to create, but we'll have a look into that. And we will call it get all cards. And instead of values here, we'll have a string. Of the type customer ID. We'll have customer ID here. So guys, we are still here on our purchase services, and I just commented out these two methods, and we are going to write one method that's going to get the purchase history for a particular user or customer. And the way of doing that is we will use future list and purchase model, because this is what we need. Get purchase history is the name of the method, and we will take a named parameter called customer ID, making sure this is asynchronous. And now we can start working with the structure of this method to get the user purchase history. Now let's just comment this guy out. Copy that and paste it here. Firebase collection. Where our field called let me open up purchase model, and what we need here is this field. Copy this, and we will define that again here. Now we want to get where customer ID is equal to customer ID let's improve this, the way this method looks like. So basically what we are doing, we are going to our customers collection and we want to get all of the purchases documents where the customer ID is equal to the customer ID we just provided. Then we'll do snapshots. Dot listen. Or for simplicity, we can just get documents. Then we have documents in here. Document dot documents. For simplicity purposes, here instead of documents, we can write result. Copy this guy out from here and we'll paste him here. Result documents. This is going to be a list of document snapshots. We'll use a method called map. And what map does, map basically what map will do, map basically does a particular operation on every single element inside of a list, right? Okay, here we have map item and inside of I'm thinking on the best way of doing this. Okay, we can do this in here. We can do list of purchase model, list of purchases, at the beginning this will be null. So inside of this item we will do the following. List of purchases, we will add, and what we want to add is purchase model okay, there's a lot going on here. I have to open my purchase model because I didn't define the from snapshot method. So let's open up this guy. Basically do the same process we usually do, which is first defining a bunch of private variables. Here we have the ID, which is a string. We have our product name, which is a string as well. We have the amount, which I defined as int, but this is supposed to be double. But anyways, I'll just leave it at int. But it makes more sense if you have your prices on double. Then we have another string. Here for the customer ID. We have our date, and date I will save that as a string as well. And our final string here, which is the card ID. Better name it like this, card ID like that. Make sure this is a private variable. Then now we need to use some getters. For all of these variables. We'll just repeat this. We have one for the product name. We have one for the customer ID. We have one for the date. We need another one for the card ID. This shouldn't be like this, it should be like that. This should be public here, okay? And our final one is going to be for our amount. Looks like we had a typo here. Okay, now we need our purchase model, and then inside of our purchase model from snapshot, We're dealing with a document snapshot, call it snapshot. The logic is basically the same. Now what we will do here again is to define our ID to be equal to snapshot dot data ID. Copy this and do the same thing for product name. Customer ID. The date. And we still need to, so make use of the credit card ID here. And finally the amount. Again, we'll create another method. Call it from map, and we are going to be taking a map. Copy this, paste it here, and instead of map, let's use data. Okay, and this is basically what we have here, and our final method is going to be called the toMap. Exactly same structure we gave to the credit card model. And on our case, this is going to be a void. I mean, it's not going to be a void, sorry. It's going to be a map. Call this string dynamic. And we'll call this toMap. And we will return a map. For the ID, we will have the ID. For the product name, we'll have product name. For the customer ID, we'll have customer ID. For the date, we'll have date. For the card ID, we paste your card ID, and finally the last thing here is the amount. Okay, this class is complete. Now let's go back to our services, and in here we'll use our from snapshot method, and in here we'll pass item. And then we'll do a return of the list of purchases. And okay, now we have our method complete here. I know that this was a bit complex and we had a lot of things going on, but let me try to explain it to you guys what happened here. We have our future get purchase history. And basically what we'll do with this method is going to our Firebase and reading all, and we'll retrieve all of the documents where the customer ID is equal to the customer ID that we just gave here, right? So what we are doing here, we are doing a Firebase collection where customer ID is equal to that customer ID we provided. We want to get documents, and in here we'll get a list of document snapshots as the result, right? So we define a list of purchase model, so all of the user purchases will be inside of this list. And we have here result.documents.map. We are going to iterate through all of the items of this particular list, and we will add all the items that we find as the members of this particular list of documents. We'll add that to this list up here, the list of purchases. But first, because this is we get this as a document snapshot type, and we want a list of product of purchase model, we have to do purchase model dot from snapshot and paste in the item, and from this method we will get in return a purchase model, right? And this is basically that for this method, and we'll have to replicate the exact same logic to get the user cards. So now we are going to use the exact same logic to get the customers cards, right? So let's just copy this method. We don't need to write this again. Let's copy this method, open up the cards services, and paste it. Let's refactor this guy, rename it. Okay. Credit card model. Now what we have to do is paste this here, credit card model, and credit card model here as well. Opening up this, we need to copy the customer ID because that's what we're using. Go up to the cards, and okay, that's that. Now I'll call this list of cards instead of calling it list of purchases. So I'll paste here the list of cards, and we'll be dealing with this. So the logic is the exact same to get the purchase history and the list of cards. Okay, done. Now, there are a couple things that I think would be very useful for us to do regarding the UI of the app. So let's now start working with the UI of the app. So guys, now let's try to see how all of these changes are going to reflect on our app, the UI side of the app. I think I already have Visor open here, and this is basically what we have here. So we want to deal with these two areas, but before we go into that, I want to show you guys something. Screens, credit card. Well, I don't know if you guys remember, but I told you that I'm not using that card form from the Stripe Flutter library anymore because I was having some issues. So I went ahead and created a screen, right? I went ahead and created a screen for the cards, and if I hit on add card, this is what we have on this particular screen, right? So what are we going to do here is I will leave the link, I will leave this code in the description because I don't want to recreate this and kind of waste time, and this video is already way too long. So I want us to focus on what's really important here, right? So I'll leave the link or the code for this particular screen on the description section. Good. Byproducts, and this is fine. Now let's create two screens, one for the cards and one for the purchase history. We can start with the cards. So screens here, we'll create a new Dart file and we'll call this cards, or manage cards. Obviously we'll have to import flutter material.dart. Manage cards screen. Okay, good. I will open up the products screen. And copy the app bar. And open up manage cards. Make sure it's a scaffold, and we'll pass the app bar here. And in here, instead of products, I will have manage cards. Okay, I'll leave here cards. Okay, cards, and we need to go back to our home page. The very first thing we are going to do is, when a user clicks here, we want to change screen. To manage card screen. And that's it. Let's open up Visor. Okay, good. This is good enough. And now we will have here go back to manage cards. In here, let's create a variable of the type credit card model. Okay. Credit card models, cards, and we can use this method from map. Okay. Open up here. Credit card model, and we'll call this card. We'll create credit card. There's an issue here. Credit card model. We'll call this guy card. Credit Okay, something weird is happening. Did I just create two classes with the same name? What's the issue here? Because when I click on credit card model, this is what I get. Okay. Okay. Now we have an issue here. Kind of have an issue here because of the way I define this. I already had created credit card model. So here on our model, we will just use card model. Okay. Continuing our troubleshoot. I really did a big mess here. This is no issue. Card model. Okay, we have that fixed. Now, here what we want to use is card model, actually, not credit card model. Okay, continuing here, we have card model from map. And we will just put here some placeholders. We need the ID. And the ID will be, I'll create something. Let me open up this guy. EXP month, EXP year. Being 12. $21. And last 4. Okay, I think this is all we need. Let's have a look into this method. And customer ID as well. We may need to modify something here for the customer ID. and this is the best approach. This is how we're passing the customer ID, and in here, when we are calling the method, then we'll provide customer ID, which is a string. Just give something. Now let's try to design that. We can start by using a list view. We have a container in here. Decoration, it's going to be equal to box decoration. And let's go to our product card, and here we just need to copy the decoration in here. Import this guy, and that's all. Add some padding here. And as a child, we'll use list tile. Okay, leading. Dot credit card. For the title, we'll use text. Then we'll do something like this. 1 2 3 4 space 1 2 3 4 space 1 2 3 4, and here we'll give card dot lastful. And for the subtitle, again you'll have text, and we will have here card, card dot month slash card.year. Okay, let's see how this thing looks like. So basically what we're doing here is trying to provide a new a UI that we will use to view our cards. Okay, we have some issues there. Let me see what the issue is. What do we have now? Here for month and year, and here exp year. Let me try to rerun this app. There was an error. Type. I have to take care of that error. We still have to take care of that error. But at least we have here the card, the basic structure for the cards at least. And continuing working on that, finally we will have trailing here. Now basically having this, and we'll use untap property to null for now. And what's the idea here? The idea is that by clicking here, you can have options of deleting this card or doing something else. And that's something we will take care of. Right? But we have the basic structure here. Let me restart the app and try to see what's the problem with. Okay, we are getting this error. Map string dynamic is not a subtype of string. How can we fix this? So guys, I have noticed one issue here, and let's have a look at our console. And we are getting this error here saying that map string dynamic is not a type of substring. But what is causing this to happen is the fact that for our DO package, we don't need to use the JSON decode. because we already get a map. So here you just have to write request.data, and here I'm talking about the method add card is the method causing the issue, and in here for the payment method you just have to, and this was supposed to be a response, not request. I was probably too tired yesterday when I did this part, but okay, it doesn't matter now. So I will copy this and paste it here. Okay, so this is basically that. That's the thing we need to do for now. And okay, one last thing we need to do regarding our UI here is one last thing we need to do here is credit card. That's not the screen that we want. We want to go to screens. We have manage cards, but this is already done. We need to have one new file called purchase. So we will call this one purchase. Okay, and the structure of this will be almost the same as the one for the manage card. So let's copy our structure here from the from the build function. We'll copy this guy, this section, STF purchases, and we will come here and paste this. Good. And for the title of the page, instead of cards, we'll give purchase history. Okay, we have this thing done. And so guys, there's a couple updates I would like to do here, because what we have now is manage cards, and we still have to edit this to improve this, but we'll come back to that. What I want to do here is to make our home a bit cleaner or better. So we'll just move this to our drawer here, and we will display the products directly here. Good. If you click on buy products, you can see that now I have included images for these products, but this is nothing. This is something you guys can do as well. This is not important. This is just the static. The logic will still the same. Now, what are we going to do? Let's go to our home page. Where is our home page? Here we have it. Okay. We will want to add here two products, two widgets. and one of them we are going to call add credit card. Good. And the final one will be subscriptions. And we are adding this to our drawer. Okay. We kind of have too many managed cards here. Get rid of this. Add credit card, manage card, subscriptions. I still have to find a good icon for our subscriptions. Now I'll just use any. Good. Now what we want to do here is making sure that when the user clicks on add credit cards, actually this should be add credit card because this is a singular card. Add credit card. We will go to the we'll open up this okay. This is good. Now there's one screen here that we call products, this one, and we will copy what is this, what is on that screen, and we'll paste that for in our home page. Import these dependencies, and finally we will go back to products again, and we want to copy the body of this. Go back to our home page, no, that's not the home page. Here we have the home page, and replace the widgets that we have on our home page with the widgets that were present on our with the widgets that were present on our products screen, because I just realized that that screen was kind of redundant. So let's restart the app and see what the user will see. This is what we see when we restart the app. And then we can hit on add credit card, and this is the screen that we are going to see. Manage cards, and we are going to get credit cards from here. Sorry. Let's create our last screen here, which is the purchase history. Wait. We already have this. Purchase history. Use change screen. Open up this and see purchases is how we called it. Okay, now let's go back to our app. I just did a hot reload. And we'll do here purchase history. Let's go back to our purchase history. And here on our purchase history, we will use one second. Purchase model. Call this purchase model. Purchase model from map. Then we have here ID. For now, we can use some dummy data here. What else do we need? We need the product name, the amount, and the date. For now, we'll just use that. Product name, and we will just give here a sample product name. And then the other thing that we need here is amount, which for whatever reason I defined as integer, and then a date. Okay. This was not supposed to be here. So after we create this product, what we are going to do is coming down to our list, and here we'll have custom text, and this is a widget we created way before. And is the purchase amount. Convert that to string. Okay, here we have it. And for the title, we will have the product name, purchase model dot product name, and for the subtitle, we can write something like purchased on and here we'll have our purchase model date. Do a hard reload and see how this looks like. And here we have it. We can do order ID, and for now I can just paste some dummy values. And this is how it looks like, our purchase history. And this probably we can implement it's not probably we can implement a lot of actions here on these three dots, like deleting and editing and all of that, but we'll just not implement them just now. We'll just leave that the way it is for now. Okay, good. Now let's make sure this is ready. So what we will do to make sure that that is ready is copying this, creating a list, and we'll create a list of the type purchase model, and in here we will have purchases, all purchase list, purchase list, and inside of our purchase list we will have this. Okay, let's copy this couple times. We have this done, and after this what we are going to do here is I can get rid of this for now, of our list style, and instead of a list style here we will use a list view builder. Index, and in here of course we need to return something, so we'll return our list style. We will define another property for our list view builder, which is item count purchase list dot length, and in here we'll use purchase list index sorry, purchase list index purchase list index as well. Well, here we have this. Let's try to reload the app and see how it changed. Okay, good. This is nothing good. This is nothing good. Let's understand the error. Okay, we have okay, I get the issue, and the issue is that we have a list view builder inside of a list view. I didn't even notice this. Oh shoot, I did a mess here. Okay. Let's see if it works. And here we have this, our purchase history. Okay, this is good enough. And we will want to use the same logic for our credit cards. Okay. We could use list view separated. Now here we will return divider, and what this will do is take a look at how our purchase history looks like. Reload the app. And now have this beautiful divider here separating our purchase history. Good. Another thing that we need now is to do the same thing for the cards. So let me just open up the cards screen. Not this one. Manage credit cards, this one. And how will we go about doing this? We'll replicate basically the same logic, which is creating a list of the type card model. Oh, seems like we have an error here. Okay, what's the issue? Okay, here's the issue. Copy this. Let's create a list. And then sorry. We'll call this cards list, and inside of this we'll pass this. Paste it a couple times. And again, we are doing this so that we can work on our UI before we start fetching this data directly from the database. So we will get rid of this. And for our body, we are going to return a list view. No, we can just use a list view builder. And we will return this. On our item count, of course, we'll use the cards list dot length. And here we will use cards list index. Cards list index. Cards list index. Restart the app and see how things will change. And here we have multiple cards for particular user. Okay, we have that done as well. Now let's go to our final part where we actually create a Stripe customer, add a card to the customer, and purchase history and all of that. So guys, let's finish up our project now. Well, I went ahead and did a couple modifications on the UI, you guys. I'm sorry, but I wanted to tell you that you don't have to worry about this because I did this offline, and I didn't record because I didn't want the video to take too long with this, and this is not completely necessary on our videos. And you probably only have this section here at the bottom, but you can continue the video with this section. This is just the UI change, nothing too special. Let's finish this thing up. Finding programming languages. Find languages. Well, the idea of this, I didn't implement this functionality, but the idea here is that you can be able to search for particular language. We'll implement this on this video probably, but okay, let's continue. Let's wrap the important features first. The very first thing we want to do here is coming to the top of the home screen. and we want to, okay, we already have users. We already have our user provider here. Okay, we will do something here, which is here at the beginning of our, at the very top of the screen, at the very top of the app, I want to wrap everything inside of a stack. You can do the exact same thing, just wrap everything inside of a stack. So here we have body, and for body we have this container, and here we want to wrap these guys inside of a stack. Okay, cool. And here you just wrapped everything that was on the body inside of this stack. Now you have to do something else, which is creating call this visibility, visible. We are making use of the visibility widget. We want this to be visible if our user dot wait a second. Let's open up our user provider, and we do have our user model, but we didn't define a getter for our user model here. Okay, so come to the user provider or of user provider file, and here use user model, get user model, and this will return the value of user model. So now we can access the value of our user model outside of this. Now we can go back to our home and continue with the logic I wanted to implement. Visibility user model, user model dot stripe ID is not null. So if the stripe ID of the user is not null, means that the user, wait, if the stripe ID of the user is null, means that the user the user doesn't exist on our Stripe side of the project. We can have the user on our database on Firebase, but he's not existing on Stripe, so we cannot add cards, or the user cannot make purchases. Now we'll add here child container with double dot infinity, and for the color of this we will give red color by something like red 200. And inside of this container we'll add another child, which will be called custom text. Add card. Okay, we'll write something like you must add a credit card, for example. And for the color of this text will be red. We can wrap everything inside of a padding widget. Add insets.all 8. Let me zoom in a bit. And after that we'll have child. And wrap with a widget called position. Top 0, left 0 as well. Okay, we have an error. What is the error? Let's go back up and try to read this. Okay, the issue is here because of this double dot infinity. What we will want to do instead is do media query dot of context dot size dot width. Let's see what happens. And we have this red info here saying you must add a credit card. So this is basically the very first thing that's going to be displayed. But if we restart the app, we may have some issues. So the best thing for us to do is do something like this. Restart the app. Okay, here you have it. You must add a credit card. So the idea here is that once the user has his credit card added here, this won't display, but before we have our credit card, we'll have this information here. Okay. Now let's deal with adding a credit card. Let's go back to our app and see how we configured that. Probably we have all of that inside of services cards. Create credit card. This is one of them, but before that, I think we shall go to Stripe, add card. Create customer. Okay, we have these two methods. So let's go back to our credit card screen. I can imagine that there's too much going on here. From here, from our credit card screen, and again, I said that I would display this code on the description section because we didn't build this screen. So let me copy it now and maybe open up sticky notes and okay. Now let me zoom this a bit. You go down to this on submit button because this is what it's important. Now what we need to do here is basically go to Stripe first. Let's go to the top of this. We need to be working with our final user here. Open up credit card, and we need that provider here as well. Of course, you'll need to call Of course, you'll need to call these files. What the hell am I doing? Okay. Sorry. This is done. So we can come down here. And the very first method that we will use here is our Stripe method. Let me go back to our Stripe service. We will need to import this file. Okay, here we have this. Now, the very first thing we will check is if user.userModel.Stripe ID is null. Basically, this means that our user doesn't have a Stripe ID. We want to use Stripe services to create Stripe customer, and we need to have the user email here, which will be user.userModel.email, and we need to have a user ID, user.user UID. Okay, so this will create a Stripe customer. Let us open up the method. Let us make it return a string. Because this will be done, and then we will return Stripe ID. So inside of our create method of our create Stripe customer, we'll make sure we update the user. We insert the user the Stripe ID into the user details, and then we return the Stripe ID as a string. And in case we have an error, we'll just return nothing. Okay, and in case we have an error, we'll return null, and at the end of this we'll just return Stripe ID. Okay, let me create a string here, call it Stripe ID as well. Make this method asynchronous. Okay, this is done, and the very next thing that we will do here is Stripe service dot add card, and for the add card section, we need couple things here. We need the Stripe ID. We need expiring month, and this will be the expiring month. We need the year, expiring year. We need the CVC, and we need the card number. Okay, now let's have a look into our method. Card number, we have everything here. Okay, once all of this is done, let us find a way of directly charging our user. I mean, sorry, I got distracted. Okay, well, to be honest, guys, I think that this video has been mega super long. I was trying to finish the whole project in a singular video, but unfortunately I will have to do the final one, right? So for now, what I will do is I'll stop from here, but for the next video it's going to be like 20-30 minutes just to wrap everything up. But for now we'll stop here.